The Arabs and Islam. Today, Iran is known as one of the Islamic countries par excellence. It is perhaps second only to Saudi Arabia itself as a center of Islamic culture and politics. It has its roots at the beginning of Islam. Here we will see how Iran influenced Arabia before Islam existed, how it was instrumental in inspiring Muhammad, and how after the conquest of all of Islam was to a certain extent recreated in Persian image. Early Islam was as much Persian as it was Arabic. The underlying fiction in national psyche of Iran, caused by the fact that Islam was introduced as a part of a conquest by culturally inferior people, eventually bubbles up in the form of a separate sect of Islam known as Shiism. The land of the origin of Islam is roughly identical with the modern state of Saudi Arabia. The Arabs of Muhammad's time and region were largely polytheistic, semi-nomadic Bedouins. Literacy was known, but not widespread. Muhammad was himself a merchant involved in the caravan trade from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean. The trade routes, parts of which are known by the romantic name the Silk Road, stretched from China and India in the east to the Mediterranean in the west. Almost all of this network of trade routes and periodic way stations were dominated by Persian culture and language. This is mainly because of the old Persian Empire of Cyrus the Great covered this entire area. The interior of the Arabian Peninsula, the homeland of Muhammad, was called Arabia Deserta by the Romans. No great power ever thought it worth conquering. The Arabic language was already heavily influenced by Persian, and certainly Zoroastrian concepts and beliefs would have been known to the Arabs. There were known to be Zoroastrian fire temples in the Mecca of Muhammad's time. Muhammad regarded Zoroastrians people of the book. Persians were in the entourage of Muhammad from the beginning, and some have said that he was taught by a Zoroastrian master. And it was he who was characterized as an angel and commanded the Prophet of Islam to recite. Regarding Iranian ideas and the foundation of Islam, one noted expert has summed up: Islamic beliefs in heaven and hell, the last judgment based on the weighing mizan of good and bad deeds, a bridge of death, and angels, as well as the tendencies towards millenarianism, messianism, and apocalypticism, along with notions of ritual purity, have all been argued to have Iranian origins. The angels Herat and Marat, Quran 2:96, are reflections of Zoroastrian Harvatat and Amaritat. Fultz, 2004, page 118. After the initial shock of the conquest by the Arabs had been absorbed, the Persians set about reasserting their intellectual and spiritual dominance. But from within the system provided by Islam, the degree and level of Persian influence on subsequent Islamic culture can be seen in the words of Ibn Khaldun, himself a famous Arabic philosopher of the 14th century. It is a remarkable fact that, with few exceptions, most Muslim scholars, both in the religious and intellectual sciences, have been non-Arabs. The founders of grammar were of Persian descent. Most of the Hadith scholars who preserved the traditions of the Prophet for the Muslims were Persian in language and breeding, because the discipline was cultivated in Iraq and regions beyond. Furthermore, all of the great jurists were Persians, as is well known. The same applies to speculative theologians and the most of the Quran commentators. Only Persians engaged in the task of preserving knowledge and writing systematic scholarly works. Thus, the truth of the statement of Muhammad become apparent. If learning were suspended at the highest parts of heaven, the Persians would attain it. The intellectual sciences were also the preserve of Persians, left alone by Arabs who did not cultivate them. Quoted by Frye, 1975, page 150. The Persians did not have to form a separate type of Islam to assert themselves. They actually reformed the Orthodox system itself to suit their culture. It is this fact that leads some in Iran today to believe the apparent absurd idea that they were not really conquered by the Arabs, but rather that the Persians absorbed and reshaped Islam in their image. Shi'ism, the sect that dominates Iran today, was not an Iranian invention, and it only became the dominant sect in the country much later in the 17th century. The Muslims accepted all the Persian apparatus of governance that the Sasanian Empire had possessed. The Arabs had conquered an empire and had no experience in running one, so the Persians had to be used for the job. Islam, which means literally submission, spread in an entirely military political way. Muslim conquerors did not forcibly convert the conquered peoples to Islam. They first only demanded the submission of the people and their leaders militarily, and only after then was their religion brought into the picture. The Muslims would just tax the non-Muslims at a higher rate, so that eventually over time people would gravitate toward being convinced of the good sense it made to convert to Islam. The Persians were instrumental in the spreading of Islam to Turkic peoples in the north. They adopted the star and crescent moon symbol, which was the Iranian Zoroastrian symbol seen on many coins of the Sasanian Empire. Islam destroyed the home base of Eastern Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrians survive in Iran, but just barely. This is a far cry from the Zoroastrian-based culture of Iran, which made it the hub of culture and intellectual achievement in the world.